Project 39 and welcome back to my channel. This is the tutorial for how I made this mini album. There is another video that shows the walkthrough of it. So I would go ahead and watch that first and then come back and I'll show you how I made this. So without further ado, let's get started on this tutorial. Alright, so starting in 2023, I have a separate video on how to cover the covers. You will use a piece of chipboard that's 6.5 by 8.5, actually two pieces that are 6.5 by 8.5, and one that is 2 inches by 8.5. You could use either version of covering that. This is the lay flat version. So to cover the chipboard, you needed 2 pieces of cardstock that are 8.5 by 10.5 and one piece that is 5 by 10.5. So follow the instructions in that video to make the cover. We are going to first do the hinge and then we're going to put the pages together. Okay, to do the hinge, and I wrote it down on this side because I don't want it to get in the way of the hinges, you'll need a piece of cardstock that's 7.5 by 8. We're going to put the 7.5 inch side at the top and we'll start scoring at 1 3/4, 2 1/4, 2 3/4, 3 1/4, 3 3/4, 4 1/4, 4 3/4, probably see a pattern by now, huh? 5 1/4, and 5 3/4. So we're having 3 pages with a 1/2 inch gusset in between those pages. All right, this is how I make my hinges. I'm going to grab my bone folder. So we have a pair of hinges and then the gusset. A pair of hinges, the gusset, and a pair of hinges. With the pair of hinges, I'm going to fold in the center of that pair. So we'll have 3 folds. I know it's harder when they're all 1/2 inch, but it will work, believe me. So there's one, and then that's the gusset, and then that's the other hinge. And then finally there is the last set of hinges. So you will have 3 sort of mountains. I guess they're mountains. They're coming up. If you were to pull this towards you and hold the other part down, this mountain's going to come up higher. And then you just sort of pull it together, pinch it together, fold on that score line, and then you've got your hinge. Now we haven't glued it yet, we're just training the paper. So we're going to do the same with the next one. And actually I really should be folding it with my bone folder to make sure that it's trained, and do the same with the third one. So now you've got your 3 sets of hinges and then the 2 gussets. So I'm going to glue those together. I am using the Designer Dries Clear adhesive from the Art Glitter Institute. And I hadn't used it yet today, so it's I'll just do one at a time. So I will, sorry, I like to grab another surface so I don't get my surface messy. And I will pinch that together. And then I'll go ahead and do the next one. Pinch that together, and then one more. Whoops, that didn't stay, did it? We're going to burnish real well in a second. And then pinch that together, have the glue adhere, and then I'm going to burnish and move it the other way and burnish. And there we go. So there is our hinge. Now I will go ahead and put that on the book. So you should have 1/2 inch available from this hinge to where the crease of the paper is, where the spine and the cover match, and about 1/4 inch from the top of the book to the top of the hinge, and the bottom of the hinge to the bottom of the book. A little less than 1/4, but close to it. So I am going to run a bead of glue right in that crevice, and then fill this in. I don't mind using a liquid adhesive to put this spine on. I mean, it holds really well. So I'm going to take that. I left some area on the side just so I can hold it. I'll lift it up and fill that in a second. But I'm doing my best to center it on here and getting it flat. And then once it's down, I just take my finger and go in the gusset, and then I move the hinge over and then use my finger and go in the gusset. Then I go back to the right hand side, move the hinge over, and then go back to the left hand hinge. And then once I think it's down, then I can use my bone folder. I just like to use my fingers first because you can gently push everything down, and then once you know it's down, then use your bone folder and still be gentle. You don't want to go crazy here. All right, now that I've got that, I'm going to lift this up, add glue to that. And then I'll do the same with this side. I mean, mostly it's down. Whoops. All right, and that's all we need to do for right now. I'm going to let that dry before I work in that the fold. I'll just let that dry. So in the meantime, we're going to grab 3 pieces of cardstock, 3 that are 6 by 8 and 3 that are 6 by 9. I'm making a very simple pocket page. I mean, it's the simplest kind. And this is always a good base to make a simple book. All right, let me put my glue pin on and put it. So I made this well, not a long time ago, maybe a year ago, when I was doing my craft room organization last year. So you put the cap on, and then this sits there, and it keeps the glue down to the bottom. I've got a little magnet here, so my pin will stick on the magnet and I don't lose it. in most cases. In most cases. All right, so anyhow, take my 6x9 piece, put the 9-inch side at the top, and I'm going to score it 1/2 inch, and then at 8.5, and do that to all 3 of the pieces. So there is just 3 pages in this book. You can add more pages. You could add flaps to the pages. You can add photos in the pocket pages. So there are extra ways of adding space to this. Or you could add more pages. There is room. Instead of having the 1/2 inch gusset, you could have the 3/8 of an inch and easily make 4, maybe even 5 pages. I guess I should trim later the corners. That is entirely up to you. I'm thinking if this is a graduation album, not a high school album, but just for graduation day, you're gonna have not a heck of a lot, a number of photographs. You'll have some, but you're not going to have as many as if you were to have a high school book. So that's why I am okay with just 3 pages. So anyhow, I'm going to fold and burnish. I wrote base page on there, which it's true, but I'm going to erase that just because it's going to be on the inside, and I mean, nobody will see it, but I don't know. Alrighty. So when I said cut this 6x9 or 6x8 for this one, I cut it a hair's width less than 8 inches. It's not even 1/32. I mean, like I'm saying, a hair's width. So that way, when I'm putting my pages together, I'm going to have my tabs on the outside, so there is nothing on the inside to hold up anything from going in. So my tabs will be on the outside. So I'm going to put my glue line up that page, push that down, and then add some more glue here. Trying to line that up. There we go. And put the glue down and burnish. So there we have our tube with no tabs inside. So I'm going to do that to the other 2 pages. Alright, and one more to go. I did not burnish this fold, so I'll do it now. Make sure there was no rating on there. Alright, so there we go. We have our 3 pages. Now I'm going to take the book and I'm going to work to make sure it'll open nicely. So I'm taking my bone folder. It is a Dress Your Craft non-stick bone folder, and I like it because it's got a very blunt tip here. So I can fold all these this way, fold my page down. I'll move them all this way. I'll go ahead and, while I'm doing that, I'm going to erase a little bit here. And there we go. All right, now we'll put our pages in. First, I'm going to dry fit it. And I definitely need to trim off a little. So when I'm trimming, I'm going to cut just a corner off of my hinge. It's going to be almost a perfect right angle. I'm not going to go all the way down because that'll sort of allow a natural stop for the page. So here is that right angle that came out of the top. And then let's dry fit it. Much better. All right, now I'm going to, well, let me cut these other ones off real quick. And I'm going to start at the back, and I will add glue on my hinge no more than halfway down. So it's going to stay on the top half of the hinge. Now it will go down when you push your page in it, but that way you don't put too much on and it will be perfect. So I'm going to go down on here. Make sure it's parallel on the page. So it's even, you've got an even margin here and also there. And then burnish. Okay, let's put on page 2. So again, add the adhesive on the top of the hinge. If I haven't told you, this is Country Craft Creations Artisan Cardstock in the antique gray. It's not a real dark gray. It's a nice neutral gray. But it works real well with this graduation collection. I like it a lot. I started out with, I wrote it down on how many pages, but it is usually best when you're starting a mini album to start out with a full pack. I use the rest of it for cards and photo mats and things like that. I think on this one, the last one I did, I had 17 pieces to make this book, but it did not allow me anything for making a mistake, and it did not allow me any extra photo mats or anything like that. So you can do it with a limited number, but it's not preferable, I'm telling you. Alright, so this will go on there. And there we go. So there are our pages. Okay, now we're going to start with the cutting. So we're going to, let me label this. So This is inside front cover. Can you see that? Pretty much. Inside front cover. This is page 1 front. 1 front. 1F. 1B for 1 back. Two F, 2B, 3F, 3B, inside, back, cover. Just so you can keep up with me. Alright, for the inside front cover, you'll need 2 pieces. One that is 3 by 8.5 and one is 6.5 by 8.5. I'm going to grab my scoreboard. We're going to score the 3 by 8.5 with the short side at the top. Scored 1/2 inch. The 6.5 by 8.5 with the short side at the top, score at 1/2 inch. If I turn these over, it's just so the writing stays right side up. I'm gonna miter the corners. On both these pieces. And fold and burnish on the score lines. All right, I folded and mitered the corners, and by mitering I mean I cut at a diagonal from the score line on both of those pieces. I'm going to be taking the larger piece, and that's going to go on the right hand side of the page, but we're not going to put it any further than where the fold is between the spine and the front cover. I'm adding my liquid adhesive. So here's where the fold is of the cover. I'm going to go about a 1/16 of an inch to the left of that so it doesn't affect the folding of the cover. Not at all. Okay. And then make sure you burnish so we get that glue. Oops. I feel like I need a little more glue here because it wasn't coming out. And then here I'll just add a little more. Okay. And then the smaller piece, 3 by 8.5, we're going to put all the way to the left hand side. Alrighty. So that will be even top to bottom because it's 8.5, which is the size of our book. Now, I don't feel any need to cover this with cardstock when I'm making my mini albums because I know we're going to cover it with paper. You're welcome to if you want to, but I just feel like it's redundant and you don't need to do that. Oh, I just wanted to point out on this page, I'm going to be adding this diploma, and I'm going to back it on a piece of white cardstock. And so then it has to go on a square. So the square is going to be 2.5 by 2.5. But I don't want to adhere that yet because I want to put this paper down first. So I just added a little bit of ATG and I'm going to stick it there. So I remember when I'm putting it all together that that's going to go there. So, and I'll need a piece for the back. On this side, 1F, move some things out of the way. So I'm going to have this on the page as a flap. So I'll give you the measurements of that in a second, but we're going to have a piece that is 3.5 by 8 and a piece that is 6 by 7.5. Grab our scoreboard. The 3.5 by 8, we're going to score 1/2 inch with the short side at the top. And the 6 by 7.5, same thing, short side at the top, and score it 1/2 inch. And I'll show you in a little more detail how I do the mitering because I think I sort of rushed through it last time. So you can see our score line. I'm taking my scissors and it just automatically stops at that indentation. So you cut up from there, just a little sliver. And then on here, I just start at the score line and cut it like that way. And we'll do the same with this. Get all those out of the way and fold in burnish. I have seen people who score on both sides, like they'll score it this way and then turn it upside down and score it there. If you want to, you can. I'm working with the artisan cardstock and it scores beautifully, so I don't feel the need to do double duty with that. Alright, now this is going to be centered on the page because it's 1/2 inch smaller than the page is actually. So I'm going to add my glue. And when I put it down first, I always do a dry fit, just so I remember exactly where it's supposed to go. That way, if you have an issue with your cutting or scoring, you fix it before you glue things down. Not to say that it's foolproof, and I never make mistakes because I do. Alright, and then this piece, 3.5 by 8, is going to go over on the base page to the right hand side. You don't want to put it over too far. I lined it up with the bottom as well. And then burnish. And then same with that. So this is 4 by 4. This is 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. This is 4 7/8 by 4 1/4. So that will fit our layers. Oh, wait, why did I cut that like that? I'm not sure. Hold on. Okay, so this one with the 4 7/8 side at the top, we're going to score at 1/2 inch. I turned it upside down just so my rating would be right side up. I'll go ahead and miter, fold, and burnish. Okay, and then this is going to go on this 3.5 by 8 inch side, I'm centering it. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I'm centering it and putting it all the way to the right hand side. So that's going to go like that, that's going to go like that. Okay, and then we're going to put that up there once we get to decorating. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to put my accent pieces on the page as we go, so I remember why I did certain features. All right, let's go on to the back of page 1. All right, for the back of page 1, 1B, you'll need a piece 5.5 by 7 and one piece 4.5 by 7. The 5.5 by 7 with the 5.5 side at the top, we're going to score at 1/2 inch. The 4.5 by 7, we're going to put the long side at the top and score at 1/2 inch. We are going to miter on the corners. You knew I was going to say that though, didn't you? You probably also knew I was going to say fold and burnish on the score lines. All right, we're going to start with the 5.5 by... Okay, stop the presses. I just want to let you know that instead of putting this over to the left, I moved it over to the right. I think it makes a better design on this page. So it's up to you on which side you wanted to put it on, but I did put it on the left originally. I pulled it off and moved it to the right. So just to let you know, there was that one design change. A 7 piece, and that is going to go on the page about 1/4 inch from the top over to the left hand side. Why does that happen? I put the pin in and it still gets stuck. I don't put the pin in and it doesn't get stuck. What is up with that? 1/4 inch from the bottom, put it over on the left hand side. Okay, now this piece is going to go, oops, glue, it's going to go on the top and it's going to go over towards the right, but I am going to have about 1/2 inch let me put something black underneath so you can see where it is on the page. There. So 1/2 inch from the side. So we have that and that. We'll probably add another piece, but we're going to wait till we get it matted. Going quick, huh? As a matter of fact, so I have a piece that is 4 by 6, but again, I'm going to just hold off on that. So the front of page 2, six and a half by 7.5, 4 3/4 by 6 3/8. I know, an odd size. So we'll put the short side at the top and score. And with this one, we'll put the short side at the top and score. I'm going to do the mitering and burnishing off camera. Okay, for the 4 3/4 inch piece, we are going to add adhesive, and this is going to go on the right hand side, but it's going to go down towards the bottom of the page. I'm leaving 1/4 of an inch so it's not right on the bottom. You could put it on the bottom if you want. And then we're putting 6.5 by 7.5 on the left-hand side towards the top of the page. No, we're centering that on the page. So that is going to go even with our other piece, but over to the left-hand side. And so when I'm putting it down, I'm not putting it on the spine, I am putting it on the page. The reason one is down, one's up is I didn't want them leveled. I wanted one to be top justified and one to be bottom justified. So that is 2F. Let's move on. All right, we're going to work on 2B and 3F. 2B, we're going to have 6 1/4 by 7.5, and we're simply going to score on one side, and we're going to have a flap coming over on this side. But since I don't know what cut apart I'm going to use, I'm not going to do that yet. We'll add it as I decorate. I'll let you know what I end up doing. So for 3F, you're going to need a piece 5.5 by 7, 3.5 by 5.5, and 4.5 by 6.5. So let's move these aside and grab the scoreboard. Okay, so the 6 1/4 by 7.5, we're going to score at 1/2 inch. Oops, 6 1/4. So we'll score at 1/2 inch with the short side at the top. All right, that's it for 2B right at the moment. For 3F, the 4.5 by 6.5, is that really what I wanted? Yep. We're going to put the long side at the top and score at 1/2 inch. This is going to have a pocket on it, and this pocket 3.5 by 5.5, we're going to score on 2 short sides and 1 long side. So I start with the long side at the top, score at 1/2 inch and rotate, score at 1/2 inch and rotate, and score and rotate. And then this 5.5 by 7, we're going to score at 1/2 inch. And I'm going to put my cutting board down and burnish and miter. And then I wanted to show you, so I mitered along the top, and then we've got the 2 score lines crossing. So I'm going to go up to the score line and then go over a little more. So it's not exactly a straight cut. Actually, I'll do a straight cut and show you why. So we'll fold, fold, fold. So this one was not exactly a straight cut, and these pieces do not connect. This one was a straight cut, and, well, it wasn't exactly. But the pieces, this one slightly goes on top of this piece. Just very slightly. I mean, it's not a big deal, and I'm not worried about bulk in the mini album, but if you are making a mini album and it's getting fat and you need to keep things from getting, I mean, really, it's not going to make that big of a deal, but sometimes it does. All right, I'm going to take this one. And I'm gonna at least adhere the bottom tab of the pocket to the bottom of this on the outside. So here's my 6.5 by 4.5. I attached it to the bottom, and then I'm going to attach the tabs to the top. That way we don't have to worry about anything getting stuck. So I will fold on those lines, and now we have a little pocket. So cute. Let's grab our book. Okay, for 2B, and as I said, we are going to put a feature coming off of here. So until we do that, I'm just going to put this page on. I'm going to center it on the page. So it's about 1/4 of an inch from top to bottom. All right, for this one, we're going to take the 5.5 by 7, and we're going to have it about a 3/8 of an inch from the top. So there's going to be a bigger gap on the bottom than there is on the top. It's not exactly centered on the page. Smaller gap at the top than there is on the bottom. Okay, now this piece with the pocket, we are going to put this over to the right hand side. We're going to put it on the top, but over to the right hand side. I'm going to turn this over to the side, and I'm going to go about 1/4 of an inch from the right hand side of the page. I can't do anything straight in this book, can I? It just makes it a little more interesting. I like to have some of the papers showing from below, but not all of it. Sort of peeking out. The reason I did this is because we're going to attach a magnet here. So the magnet's going to go in the bottom corner onto the backing page. All right, page 3B is next. I have a piece that's 6 by 7.5 and a piece that's 3.5 by 8. So I'm taping, there's glitter on the pages. I'm trying to get the glitter off. So the 3.5 by 8, we'll put the short side, just making sure you can see, I'll move this. Short side at the top, scored 1/2 inch. And the same with the 6 and 7.5. Is that right? I don't want it that way. I want to score it on this side. With the short side at the top, we'll score it at 1/2 inch. And since we're on a roll, we might as well do the back inside cover. So I have a piece 3.5 by 8.5, and with the short side at the top, I'm going to score it 1/2 inch. And with the short side at the top for the 6.5 by 8.5, we're going to score it 1/2 inch. And I have one additional piece for this. I have to measure and cut it out because I forgot I was going to do it. Okay, so we also need a piece that's 4 by 7.5. I'm going to score on 3 sides. It's going to be a pocket. So with the long side at the top, score it 1/2 inch, rotate. Short side at the top, score it 1/2 inch, rotate, and long side at the top. Oops. Score it 1/2 inch and rotate. And we're going to miter and burnish these and add them to the book, and we'll be done, except for some additional flaps. We'll be done adding pages to the book. All right, let's glue everything on. So I'm going to take the bigger piece for 3B, which is the 6 by 7.5, center it on the page and glue it to the right hand side of the page, right on the page up against the hinge. And the 3.5 by 8 is going to go on the left hand side, and that'll take up the full page. I'm making sure it's even with the bottom and the top, and then burnishing, and then burnishing. So there's that one. And similar here, so the 3.5 by 8.5, going to put on the right hand side of the page. So I'm making sure it's level with the edge of the book, the cover. The 6.5 by 8.5 will go close to where the fold of the book is, but not over. So I'm going to put it at the fold and push it up a little bit. Make sure the book will still fold, and we're good. Actually, I probably could have moved it more, which means that I need to re-score my pocket because now my pocket won't fit. As I was recording, my computer got hung up. I don't know if it's my CPU. I don't know if it's my port. I don't know. But anyhow, I put the pocket down. And then we've got this page and this page. And that is how I made the mini album. Thank you so much for joining me. Please hit that like button. It really helps me out. And if you would, please subscribe if you haven't. I have some other fun tutorials coming up. I love the glitter. Isn't that pretty? And that is what I have for you today. Thank you so much. Have a fabulous day.